Well, good morning, everyone. We are back, Friday edition NFL Fantasy Matchup. Jed, Jimmy, as usual. It's raining here, Jed. How hard is it raining on your end?
It's actually not bad. I don't even think it's raining up in the suburbs, so I don't know. Maybe you'll hit us later.
Oh, wow. Okay. Hey, now, did any of you guys watch yesterday's game? I was surprised. I'm sitting here at a Christmas dinner. Baker Mayfield comes out. I mean, he literally just got cut early this week. Didn't he said that he kind of knew the playbook, especially a lot of the schemes matched what he was doing in Cleveland, and so here he was coming into the second play of the first quarter.
Yeah, and he led
Well,
them on the final comeback drive, so they
yeah.
won. That was pretty impressive.
I mean, they did say it during the pregame show that they were because the original starter who was the reserve, the backup quarterback, he was going through some neck issues, right? And so they said most likely you're going to see Baker come out, but they're going to test him out during practice. And I guess after one play, they were like, let's put Baker in. And actually, he's a pretty of all the teams that he get picked up on. I think the Rams were the best team. I mean, they had nothing to lose. They have no wide receivers out there. They have no players, and so let's just see what happens.
I wonder if their ownership actually wanted them to lose. Maybe it was a bad thing for them to win.
Oh yeah, I mean, a lot of times is this season. If you look at it, a lot of players are pretty much out, and so call it a season. There's no way, there's no reason to keep winning.
Yeah.
Jed, going forward, a lot of times Cam Akers, 12 carries, 42 yards. Jimmy has been talking about Kyrie Williams. Didn't really do much, 3 carries, 19 yards. But there's another guy that came out, Skalranek. A
He's
lot
the
of times,
receiver.
white, Caucasian white receiver, 7 catches, 89 yards. He's been someone that a lot of people have been talking about as possibly a sleeper, especially with Allen Robinson. If you're desperate, are you giving him a look?
Here's the reason why he's a sleeper. It's because they have nobody on that team. I mean, the only receiver that they can even look at is Van Jefferson, who ended up catching that touchdown. But they have nobody that they can throw to right now.
Yeah, I just like how you qualified that. No, go ahead.
I was going to argue about Tutu Atwell, 5 catches, 59 yards.
Actually, yeah, I do have him. I do have him in one team where it's like a deep league. And Tutu Atwell's been averaging some decent points. You know, actually, ever since Tommy had mentioned him, I started looking at Tutu Atwell, and I was like, oh, he actually might be someone decent. If you have like a really deep league and it's a dynasty league, I just stash him away because he might actually be pertinent one day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jed, sorry, I cut you off.
I think that's wise. It's no, not at all. I was laughing just because that you qualified that he was a Caucasian wide receiver. That cracked me up. But no, I think at this point in the time, you want to start looking at garbage time teams, and so I do think it's worth at least a look. Another team that I'm looking at is Houston. Houston's getting killed in a lot of games, but there's a lot of garbage time points there. So yeah, this is the point in the year where everyone is in play. Names that you aren't aware of can suddenly help you get a couple extra points, which helps you get into the playoffs. So I think everyone's up for option.
Yeah. As an aside, did you know that the NFL has been talking about a draft lottery similar to how basketball does it, because they said that they're a little tired of all of these teams potentially tanking towards the end of the season so they can get the number 1 draft pick?
Jed, as you and I chat here, for some just so you know, we might be having just a little bit of lag time because today I am using my old laptop because I was just on my plane trip over to Indonesia, and guess what happens? You got to make sure you take your water bottle, especially if there's a spout, out when it takes off because the pressure builds and the water comes out. And so some of my water got into my laptop. So now I have to go to my backup laptop, which is a little slower today.
Well, that's why, because you also sound a little muffled. And I'm sure that's the other reason why I bet the audio isn't that good.
Oh, yeah. So if you notice today, I am on my headphones today because my sound doesn't work. But if I plug in my headphones, then I hear everything. So I have this backup laptop, which doesn't really work well.
Yeah. By the way, did you put
Stick
in
it
rice?
in rice, Tommy? Maybe that'll work. Yeah.
Jim, how muffled does it sound today?
No, it's okay. I mean, yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
Jed, I'm going to go over to you. LA Raiders, Las Vegas Raiders. The problem is you never know which Raiders is going to show up. And so suddenly Jacobs did 27 carries, 99 yards, 1 touchdown. Devontae Adams, 71 yards. But then last week they had a monster day. This week they come back down to earth a little bit. It's so inconsistent. David Carr, 137 yards, 2 interceptions. What do you think of the Las Vegas Raiders?
Yeah, I mean, Raiders are definitely one of the most disappointing teams this season. The consistency has been a major issue. I think they also have the most losses by, single digit points. So they just right on the wrong end in those really close games. But basically, if you have Jacobs, though, you cannot be disappointed. Jacobs almost still got 100 yards, and he has been really he's been top 5 back for the past 3, 4, 5 weeks. And going into the playoffs, you got to feel pretty good about him. Adams is really tricky. Adams has definitely been pretty volatile, but you got to roll again with the talent level there. I think Carr is the one where probably you can find someone better and maybe take a shot on someone better, like a Trevor Lawrence or a Geno Smith, someone like that. But I think both Jacobs and Adams, I'm still playing them. I also played Moreau, the tight end. He didn't get anything, which was terrible. I got 0 points this week. But I will say last week or this past waiver, I actually picked up Darren Waller in quite a few leagues because he's coming off IR next week, right at the start of the playoffs. And he might be someone who could, tight end has been a weak spot for me all year. He might be someone who, talent-wise, he'll be top 5 right away. So he might be able to produce for you.
Jed, I was going to tell you this in our Walter White League. Did you see who I picked up? Darren Waller.
Yeah,
smashed him in the IR. And I'm looking at the waiver wire pickups for that league now. I see you just picked up George Pickens last night.
Yeah, well, so I had an IR. There was a guy who was able to move into IR, so I had an open spot. And so, yeah, I mean, again, if you have open spots on your bench, don't waste them. Even if you think, I don't need anyone, go out and take, 2, 3 guys up top because you're taking it from someone else who might need them. Totally. And that might be the person you're playing. So,
Tom, we can't hear you now.
For instance, a lot of times you were talking about the Houston Texans. Brandon Cook a lot of times is out with a calf injury. The person that a lot of times look at Nico Collins, they're probably going to struggle the entire time. So Nico Collins has suddenly gotten 6 catches, 5 catches, 4 catches. And so you're seeing Nico Collins, who was an early round draft pick for those guys. They're going to try him out and see how well he does.
Yeah, that's a good call on looking at, rookies too. Again, like you said, a lot of teams, rookies, sophomores, they want to see what they have. And towards the end of the season, if playoffs aren't an option for them, then they just want to see how these other guys are developing. So that's a really good call. The other thing on Houston, I'll say is, if your teams or if your leagues play with team defenses, don't sleep on that. And if you don't have one of the top defenses, stream against Houston. That's not a bad option. In fact, in a couple leagues, I picked up Tennessee, and people are like, "Why did he pick up Tennessee?"
Because they're playing Houston this week.
It's because they're playing Houston week 16. It's like the very first, or week 15. It's like the first week of the playoffs, and that could be a really good play.
Jim, a lot of times if you look at all the QBs that are either on bye or injured, you suddenly have Justin Fields, Jimmy G. From that point on, you have Andy Dalton out, Aaron Rodgers out. Which quarterback do you like? Is it Daniel Jones? I personally like a Mike White a lot. Who are you looking at?
I think Mike White, if I had a chance to pick up a Mike White, he would be somebody I would take a look at. Just because the last week, he didn't do it as well as the week before when he played against the Bears. But he had a decent showing, double digits. Actually, and I think the league I was just telling you about where it's really deep, I lost both my quarterbacks, Stafford as well as Jimmy G, and there's nobody out there. So the question was between either Tyler Huntley, Ryan Tannehill, or Desmond Ridder. So I just picked up Huntley, and I'm just going to go with him because I feel like at least he's got the legs to be able to do it. Whereas Tannehill, some people are saying that he might be actually a pretty decent pickup, but I feel like they're just going to give it to Derrick Henry and just let him run.
Yeah, they're playing, their Titans are playing Jacksonville, so I think that's why people are thinking Tannehill might be okay, but you're right. I mean, with the running game, you think they might lean on that over the passing game. The other one, though, is Trevor Lawrence. I mentioned he's been dropped in several leagues, and I know he's questionable.
Yeah, I think is he still playing this week? And I saw he was limited this week for practice, so let me...
Yeah, sideline on Thursday's practice indicated he might be able to practice sometime this week. So today, you want to see if he practices today. That'll be a key play. But again, if they're playing up against Tennessee, It could be some, dump offs to Travis Etienne or
Yeah.
something that gets you a score there.
In one of my leagues, I have Tua and also Joe Burrows. And Tua for a few weeks was doing really good, but the last week he struggled. And Joe Burrows is hot right now, so I'm going to go with Joe.
Oh, Burrows has been carrying me in one league. The guy has been amazing.
At any point, Jed, are you playing Deshaun Watson?
No, and anyone who does is going straight to the bad place. I have at least 2 leagues where I basically shamed anyone from picking him up. So we'll see. I mean, you know what though? Here's the good thing: he didn't look good last week. So if you did
Deshaun
pick him
Watson?
up, yeah, Deshaun Watson did not look good last week. So if you pick him up, you gotta hold on. I actually don't know that I would play him this week. I think you might still give him another week to see if he can really, kind of get back to where he was. But he didn't look good last week.
Jed, let me ask you a quick question. Lamar Jackson suffers a sprained PCL during Sunday's win against Denver Broncos. We all know that he wants to be the highest paid. He wants Deshaun Watson guaranteed money. If you were to bet, would you think that Lamar Jackson will be playing this week?
That's a good question. Maybe I didn't think of him using it as leverage. That's a really good question. I don't know. I would just check the reports, close. I haven't been following on that guy, so I don't know. But I do think he's going to get his money. We talked about that a little bit last week. As much as you hate, hamstringing your salary cap with all of that money, you just can't get quarterbacks these days. And he's definitely a top 10, maybe even top 5 quarterback. So he's going to get his money.
I think you're right. There's no way they don't pay him. I don't know if they'll give him the full amount that he's looking for. But by the way, baseball players get tons of money, more so than football players. See how much Aaron Judge got? That guy's making like $78 every hour, Aaron Judge, for the next 10 years.
Yeah. The only awkward thing about Lamar Jackson, he wants Deshaun Jackson money, guaranteed money, hundreds of millions of dollars. The only thing is he's negotiating for himself, so he doesn't have his own agent. So now you have a player who's negotiating for himself, now trying to figure out, should I play? Because later on, that may potentially hurt or help me later on, especially if I get injured even more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if he decides not to play because of that for his leverage, I mean, more power to him. I am of the ilk that, like, as a player, you only have 1 or 2 chances to get as much money as you can, and the rest of the time you're at basically the mercy of the teams, and so you have to maximize what you can get then. And so I have no problem with him doing it. If he needs to sit out to get more money, I got no problem with it.
Well, for this week, I'm actually, because of that, I'm a little interested in watching Huntley play, right? Because if Huntley does decently well, that does put a little bit of pressure on Lamar to either decide whether or not he wants to come back or to play. Because here's the thing: is Huntley plays decently well. They're like, you know what? We're not going to rush you back, so you're fine. You can sit there for a while.
Yeah, Jed. With that said, with what Jimmy just said, which Baltimore Ravens do you like? Mark Andrews usually is a shoo-in, but he has not been doing very, very well. Who do you like on the Ravens team?
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. I don't know that there's really anybody that I'm looking. I know some people picked up Gus Edwards, and I think, is Dobbins back this week?
Yeah, Dobbins is back this week.
Okay, so if Dobbins is back, that's not a bad pickup, or not a bad play, just to see, he's been off. He's going to want to perform well for the last few games. I could see that being a good play.
Yeah. I know you guys a lot. I think either you or Tommy were high on Dobbins early on. The hard part is the running back committee now with Gus Edwards. I forgot who they have in the mix. Kenyon Drake.
Yeah,
Drake. I still think Dobbins is going to emerge as the number one running back in that backfield. But you're entering the playoffs, right? And so who do you risk? Can you risk playing J.K. Dobbins this weekend? Some of these people are heading into the playoffs.
I'm telling you, my 2 picks, Cam Akers, J.K. Dobbins, are finally getting healthy.
Hey, Cam Akers, touchdowns, 2 straight games. I really think it might play out for you.
He also had a fumble too, Cam Akers. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think that, again. I think that's a good late round pickup. Going into these playoff weeks. And everyone, don't forget, there are 5 teams on bye this week. So you got Atlanta, Chicago, Green Bay, Indianapolis, New Orleans, and Washington all off this week. So and this is the last week of buys. But just be careful this week. Set your lineups.
Jed, Jimmy knows this. In one of our other leagues, I always sit there and all I care about is squeaking into the playoffs. And so I sit there and pick up all these different players. And here I am now about to go into the playoffs. I have Jamar Chase, who I traded with Jimmy. DeAndre Hopkins is coming back from injury. Jamal Williams has always been sitting on my bench. A lot of times he's been doing really, really well. Chris Godwin is back. Allen is back. And then suddenly Christian Watson's emerging, Christian Kirk, and sitting there is J.K. Dobbins. So I'm really excited about this team going to the playoffs.
He's very happy. You also lucked out because you ended up getting Joe Burrows when your quarterback before was like Tom Brady or somebody like that. So yeah, he's peaking at the right time. I will say he scored the most points last week in a head-to-head league. I think he's gaining momentum entering the playoffs, and he's got some really good players that are coming back.
I think Watson. So just thinking about every year, there's kind of like fantasy MVPs of the playoffs, of the fantasy playoffs, and there's usually one or two or three guys who get really hot and can just carry you through. And it's always somebody who wasn't drafted originally. And I think Watson could be one of those guys because he has been on fire. I think he's something like 8 or 9 touchdowns in only 4 games over the last 4 games. Mm-hmm. So Watson's been great.
You're right. I think there's always that one player, and I'm trying to remember who it was last year, but it's somebody that's usually stashed in the waiver wires, somebody who no one's paid attention to, and somebody like who I think everyone has just Cordell Patterson could have been like last year's type of person, So
yeah.
Now, doesn't Christian Watson remind you of the older days with Jordy Nelson? Jordy Nelson seemed to always come out of nowhere, get that 10-yard catch and run for another 20 yards. That Christian Watson reminds me of that. Every single time I turn on the TV, there he is running for a long touchdown.
Yeah.
I don't know about coming out of nowhere, man. Jordy Nelson was like top 5, top 3 wide receiver every year for a good stretch. I mean, he was very good.
But the thing is, when he first started, he was not drafted very, very high. And so suddenly he grew into that role and became, because I still remember they had Donald Driver back in the day and all of those guys, and suddenly here he is.
Yeah, Tom, well, you could always draft both of those guys. I remember back then.
Yeah. Tom, the other person that you might want to at least be cautious about, I don't know about what you guys think, Jamal Williams. It seems that all of a sudden DeAndre Swift is gaining some momentum in that backfield, and they're using him more and more. And this week, they said that he's completely healthy. So I think that's going to eat into some of the – I mean, outside of the fact that Williams is going to be the red zone back, I think it's going to eat in some of his points and productivity as well, too.
Yeah. Oh, I'm waiting for the day when I start. Jamal Williams gets to the point where what does he get? Maybe about 3 rushes in the red zone or something like that. Yeah, and then pretty soon, Rachaad White will have to be my only running back, and then I'll have to decide between: do I go with Devontae Foreman? Do I go with the Christian Watson? Christian Kirk. Those are the guys I need to start looking at. That.
See, I think if I were knowing your team, Deontay Foreman, he's basically now in a shared backfield with Chuba Hubbard. I would go for a Christian Kirk. Well, part of it is also, it depends if Trevor Lawrence is going to be playing as well too. But Christian Kirk has done pretty well the last few weeks.
Yeah. Jim, Desmond Ridder. I know a lot of times you were looking at him early in the year. Is he somebody, if you have a dynasty, you're going to pick up a Desmond Ridder because the Atlanta Falcons are moving to Desmond Ridder as their future quarterback?
Who knows, right? Like, actually, I mean, if Drake London might really benefit from this as well, too. Ridder is a younger quarterback. He runs. He's got a decent arm, not drafted too high. I didn't see where he was drafted. But actually, like, if you're in a dynasty league and you need a quarterback, I would just say just stash him, pick him up. You never know when you can end up using him, and he might turn out to be a better quarterback than what you have. And if he's not that good, then just dump him. But actually, I'm intrigued to see what's going to happen with Ridder, especially in regards to some of the receivers, because this could actually also have impact for Kyle Pitts down the road as well, too.
Chad, a lot of times Kenneth Walker misses practice Wednesday. There's a good chance that he will not be playing. Do you even like a Travis Homer or a DJ Dallas? Who DJ Dallas last year in his limited time, both him and Homer did okay. They did okay.
Yeah, no, I like Homer actually of those two, and I'm looking now. A lot of people picked him up today, I think, because of the news. Yeah. So if you do need a running back, Travis Homer is not a bad play. Another guy I've seen out there, Chuba Hubbard on Carolina. So Carolina's playing Seattle this week, and so those are both decent pickups if you're looking for a little bit of help.
Tom, did you know that DJ Dallas did not play yesterday along with Kenneth Walker? And so the thought has been that most likely Homer is going to be the number one running back for Seattle.
Got it. Got it. Jim, Joe Mixon expected to play in Week 14. What are your thoughts on Joe Mixon?
No, yeah, no, I'm glad because he's on a number of teams heading into playoffs. I need a Joe Mixon. I still think that Samuel Pirine at some point is still going to be pertinent because it showed the last few weeks that he's actually a pretty good part of that offense. It might be a good change of back, but I'm gonna expect Mixon to be the number one guy for them.
Jed, Mike Williams finally comes back. He came back a couple weeks ago, gets injured the first game he's back, and so now he practices, and hopefully he'll be back on Sunday.
Yeah, I've got him on a couple teams, so hoping, we'll see how well. But I think he should, be able to get right back into the Chargers. Have been disappointing, another disappointing team. I think this year, high expectations. But if you have Jordan Palmer, you just got to, see because there's going to be a lot more distribution. I would expect Mike Williams to take some more of that.
But I mean, they're playing Miami, right? They're going to need the offense because Tua's got Waddle. He's going to throw it down to Hill. Herbert actually is really good when he's got all of his pieces together. In the first couple of weeks, when he had both Williams and he had Keenan Allen and also Austin Eckler, his tight end is healthy. I actually think that Williams and Allen's are good plays for this week.
Let me ask you a quick question. I'm not sure if you guys know this with trivia. Who is currently leading the Pro Bowl voting with the most votes?
Justin Fields.
What do you think?
Oh, that's pretty good. I like that. Justin Fields. No, I would think Jalen Hurts.
Nope. Tua.
Oh, wow. Tua. Yeah. But he's lost some of the last couple of weeks. And maybe it's because last week he played against San Francisco, and San Francisco's got such a good defense.
He has more votes in the Pro Bowl voting than Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Jonathan Taylor, all of Justin Jefferson, all of them. Surprisingly, he's your number one vote getter.
Yeah. I would imagine Justin Fields is going to get some pretty good results as well, too. But, yeah, I can see Tua.
Yeah. Hey, another running back, I was just noticing that you might have missed him off of waivers, but James Cook in Buffalo.
Oh, yeah.
He's starting to come on, and I picked him up in a couple leagues. So
I do like the James Cook.
Yeah.
All right. So, Jed, speaking of James Cook, let me ask you a quick question. If you had a choice between Levante Murray, Leonard Fournette, James Cook, or Pacheco over at Kansas City, who would you pick?
Oh, Pacheco. Pacheco has been hot, man. Yeah, he's been great. They're definitely starting to see finally what they have in him. So I would play Pacheco first out of that group. I would play James Cook second, though, out of that group.
I am a big Pacheco fan. I think they're starting to figure out how to utilize him as well, too. But you're right. Like with James Cook, I mean, one, you got to think he's the brother of Dalvin Cook, so he's got to have some pretty good skills. And the second one is Devin Singletary. They've really always been trying to replace him, whether it's with
Zach Moss.
Yeah, Zach Moss or whoever they've kind of brought in. The only going back to that, Jed, Nyheim Hines is nowhere near, right?
Yeah, I know.
I always thought if they could do a James Cook Hines combo similar to in the past what they did with the Chubb, and what's his name? I think they would have been great. So
yeah, very disappointing.
They need a Kareem Hunt in there, or they need what do they call it? Kenyon Drake. If Kenyon Drake was there, paired up with James Cook, it would be a perfect backfield.
Yeah.
Jim, tight ends, Cole Kmet, he's out. Wait, just so you know, here are the players that are out because of buys: Christian Watson, Justin Fields, Jonathan Taylor, Terry McLaurin, Olave, Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon, Cole Kmet. We have a lot of players that are out. Jim, if you're looking for a tight end, who would you pick out of this group as a tight end that you'll start? Is it Evan Ingram, Noah Fant, Tyler Conklin, or out of Denver, the guy, I'm going to butcher his name, Greg Dulcich?
You know, actually right now, I think if I were to pick somebody, I would pick a Noah Fant with Seattle. I think without the big running back, Kenneth Walker out there, they've got Tyler Lockett, they've got DK Metcalf. And what you've seen in the last few weeks is with Walker limited in the last game, Metcalf had a great week, right? And so I think to relieve some pressure off of Homer or whoever's going to start this week, I think they're going to really need the tight end to be able to do some work. So I like Noah Fant.
Yeah. Jed, which tight end do you like? Because I know a lot of times there's nothing besides Travis Kelce. There's no tight ends there left.
I know, and you know what? I had Hayden Hurst for a while, and then he's doubtful for this week.
Yeah, he got injured.
Yeah, so yeah, Noah Fant. I do have him in one league. Mike Gesicki is another guy if he's on your waivers, or Tyler Conklin out of New York. I've used him a couple times, but you're really scraping the bottom of the barrel. That's why if you can get Darren Waller, who's still on IL this week, and keep him for next week, it's worth it because there's just nobody left in the tight ends.
Yeah. Jim, Odell Beckham leaves Dallas without a contract. James Washington is their third wide receiver after CeeDee Lamb and Gallup is coming back this week. What are your thoughts on Odell Beckham?
I think with him not coming, that was the best news to Gallup, right? I'm trying to pull up Gallup's statistics. Let me try to pull up Gallup's statistics.
And Gallup is a guy. If for some reason he's out there, definitely jump on him. That you're exactly right. His numbers are going to look good.
I mean, look at it. 2 weeks ago, week 12, he had almost 9 fantasy points, right? Week 13, 16 fantasy points with 2 touchdowns. This week, he's projected to at least have 11 fantasy points, and they're playing Houston. I mean, if Gallup's on your waiver wire, he's the person I'm going to jump on. And then the next few weeks, he's got Jacksonville, Philadelphia, and Tennessee. At least with Jacksonville and Philadelphia, they're going to need Gallup to score in Philadelphia, and Jacksonville's got a weak defense. So I think Gallup, CeeDee Lamb, Tony Pollard, those are good plays for these next few weeks.
Yeah. Hey, what do you guys think about Denver? I've got Cortland Sutton in one league. He's doubtful for this week, but just the whole Denver offense has been going down. Do you think I should, I'm just looking on my waivers, I've got Drake London sitting out there. I'm thinking maybe I should take Drake over Cortland Sutton, but Cortland Sutton is he was pretty good earlier in the season.
Look, here's the thing. We know what you can get from Cortland Sutton. You know Russell Wilson. I mean, last week he barely scored. I think they were single digits for the most of the game, right? So I think they're going to tell Ritter, I want you to throw it. I want you to throw it to Drake London. I think London will be a better play than a Cortland Sutton.
No, I would probably go with Jerry Jeudy. If you're desperate, I still go at least to see how Ritter does, and I would probably go with Jerry Jeudy this week. Jed, let me ask you a quick question. If you had to pick one of the 3 in the flex position, Marquise Brown, DJ Chark, or Damian Harris?
Oh, it's funny you mentioned Chark. I was going to say he might be on some waivers if you're looking for wide receiver. But Marquise Brown, I mean, I've been waiting for him to get out and kind of bust out a little bit. The things are a little bit messed up in Arizona, though. I feel like with Kyler Murray, there's been a lot of negative talk. But Marquise Brown with his, deep play threat, I mean, I like him back with Hopkins.
Yeah.
They were waiting for Rondale Moore to come back, but most likely he's not going to play. He's still limited by his groin injury. So the 3 people they still have is AJ Green. They're going to have Marquise Brown as well as DeAndre Hopkins.
Jim, let me ask Jed this question. Jed, since you just picked up George Pickens this morning, if you had George Pickens or Deontay Johnson, who are you playing?
George Pickens. I like Pickens. I've always been a better
ceiling. Yeah, he has a higher ceiling. And they're playing Baltimore. Here's the only thing is they're playing Baltimore this week, right? Baltimore's got a pretty good defense, but their offense is going to struggle. So the question is, do they really need to score that many points for Pittsburgh? Or are you going to see them just try to go through Najee Harris to try to win this game because they know that they're not going to need to compete via points?
Jim, Garrett Wilson, are you starting him every week?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. I think Garrett Wilson, especially with Mike White, is a good play. The other person is the backup running back. What's his name? Let me pull it up. Who's the backup running back? Running back. Tight end. Go ahead.
While he's looking at that, Jed, are you even looking at Melvin Gordon at all? Kansas City picked up Melvin Gordon. Is he even somebody if you're desperate enough to play a Melvin Gordon?
No, I'm not. I'm not. I mean, they still have what's his name sitting behind Pacheco. They still got your guy. Who was the guy?
Clyde
Oh,
Edwards-Helaire.
no, Jarek McKinnon.
Yeah,
Jarek
Clyde
McKinnon
Edwards-Helaire.
is a better
Oh, yeah,
play than
McKinnon.
Melvin Gordon. Yeah. I mean, he had almost 11, 12 fantasy points last week. He had one touchdown. I think if Pacheco's not doing anything, you can always rely on McKinnon to at least have some sort of like 9 to 10 fantasy points. Tom, Zonovan Knights, 16 fantasy points in week 13, almost 11 fantasy points in week 12. He's the lead running back. Him and Garrett Wilson, to be honest, like if this week, I would play both of them.
Interesting. All right. Last one.
Zonovan Knights on our league, by the way.
Yeah.
So I would pick him up.
I'll look at it. Jim, last one. If you Raheem Mostert or Jeff Wilson Jr.
Jeff, you know what? I don't know. I think last week the momentum. I like Jeff Wilson Jr. How about that? Because I think he's a better ceiling. But I do find that the momentum went back a little bit toward Raheem Mostert last week.
Yeah.
So I mean that's a toss-up. I think if I were to choose, I still go for Jeff Wilson Jr. But I would not be surprised if Mostert ended up being the lead back with the most carries this week.
Yeah, I was gonna say I picked up Jeff Wilson Jr. He'd had a couple good weeks, and then last week was a disappointment. So you just got to see. I mean, those guys, you're rolling the dice a little bit either way.
All right, let me switch gears a little bit. Jed, I've been paying attention because you and I are playing basketball this week. We're going head to head. So every single day I've been looking at my lineups, seeing how I could beat your team. But you have a pretty good team coming up this week.
I have a good team, but you have a great team. So it's I've been waiting for your team to catch up because I started off the week with more games than you. So, we'll see. I mean, at this point, you're not picking up, I'm not picking up, guys. So it's really just about, number of games and how people perform. But we'll see. I mean, basketball has been fun, but you're killing it, man. We gotta drop the IL so people can get more players.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jim, I made that trade with our friend Jalen. I got Kyle Kuzma, Brandon Ingram, and Zubac, and he really wanted Brook Lopez. He really wanted Brook Lopez as well as Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this before. I'm just look, if Westbrook gets traded, I think there's a lot of fantasy relevance. The problem with Westbrook, tons of turnovers and really bad field goal percentage, right? So he's always going to force you to lose on those two fronts. So.
And amazingly, for someone as a point guard, he does not shoot threes. He probably will make 1 or 2 threes. Now, at the same time, the guy that you've seen on waivers, and literally, I'm just dropping him right now, pay attention to Jordan Poole. Even though Steph Curry was out, the last couple games, 36 points, 23 points, 21 points, 30 points. Jordan Poole is coming on. He was terrible at the beginning of the year, but pay attention to Jordan Poole.
Wait, why are you dropping him?
Because I need to drop someone. Because I need to keep, since I got Brandon Ingram and Kyle Kuzma.
Oh, why don't you trade them to me?
Because I need to drop someone in order to accept the trade.
Okay.
Yeah. Because, Jed, before Jalen changed his mind, I had to go and click and accept the trade as fast as I could.
That Jalen.
I hope Jalen heard that.
Hey, any other news on your basketball, baseball free agency, TV shows or movies that you're excited about? Where as we wrap up, what are the things that you're excited about or you're paying attention about this week?
Well, it seems the Cubs are spending money these days. I don't know if they're spending money on the right players. They gave a 1-year contract to Bellinger. They gave another multi-year contract, big money to a starting pitcher. I just wish that they would pick 1 or 2 really good free agents. But they seem to like they're going to go after a couple of these 1-year guys and see what happens.
Yeah. No, nothing really on my end. I mean, just been kind of watching the Bulls, see how they pick up. But it feels like they didn't decide to make any trades, so that's kind of interesting. Show wise, my wife and I just finished watching Wednesday on Netflix. That was pretty good. It's cute.
Yeah. What's the show?
Wednesday, the Addams Family. The girl.
Okay. Yeah.
There's like a series, like an 8. It was cute. I liked it.
Okay.
It has become so popular, Jed, on Netflix that they've renewed it for 5 seasons.
Wow,
Is it
wow,
really that good? Is
5.
it really that good?
They said it has been
I
the
mean,
number one streaming show on Netflix.
yeah, it's got kind of a Harry Potter, but like kind of more, more dark vibe. But and she's very good. The actress who plays Wednesday is excellent. So it's that part is good.
Yeah. Now, Jed, speaking of the Chicago Bulls, rumor has it that the New York Knicks are interested in Levine. And right now, a lot
Yeah.
of times the Bulls are not interested. Hey, look, he has not been the same players. He signed that massive max contract. His knee constantly gives him problems. If I were them, this team is not going anywhere. This team, as it currently constructed, is not going to the championship run. I was listening to ESPN radio. They said, as bad as Garpax was, they did create your Ben Gordon, Kirk Heinrich era. They create the Derrick Rose era. Injuries derailed both of those things, but they drafted Luol Deng. They drafted Kirk Heinrich. They drafted all those guys. This particular regime has done nothing. They traded for Vucevic, gave away Wendell Carter, gave away for Franz Wagner, which they drafted. If they don't get the top 4 picks, that draft pick goes to Orlando again this year.
Wendell Carter ended up being a really good player for Orlando. And I think you were listening to the same thing. Barkley was the one who says, just blow this thing up, right? Get rid of Levine, get rid of DeRozan, and just start on over, because right now they're just stuck.
Yeah, I mean, DeRozan's too old, and Levine. A lot of these players, once that you see this so often, in any sport where they play great right before the contract year, and then once they sign, well, it's just natural human psychology, right? They kind of lean back a little bit, and so then they don't have a down year. But I agree. I mean, I think the Bulls probably need to start over. This is not the team that's going to do it. But I would disagree that I think the jury's still out on the front office box. I mean, they got us to this point. Like, I still like the moves. Unfortunately, Ball being out has, I think, hurt. And some of the other players, I would argue, like Wendell and like Markkanen, right? Markkanen, I don't think he could have done what he's doing now. I don't think he could have done that in Chicago. He had to leave Chicago to be able to play like that. So you can't really blame them in those situations.
Speaking of Charles Barkley and the NBA TNT guys, I'm not sure if you guys saw that. Charles Barkley was saying there that he said, I was talking with Adam Silver, and you know what he said to me? And Shaq says to him, stop eating.
I love that. The Shaq. Have you guys been watching? I've been watching. There's that Shaq documentary on HBO Max.
No, actually, I saw it yesterday. Is it good?
Yeah, it comes out every week. It's interesting. I mean, there's a lot of F-bombs, a lot of language, but and it's definitely Shaq's perspective. He's definitely tilting, things in his. But if you watched, I mean, I was a big Lakers fan, growing up in that era when they played well, and it's interesting seeing his perspective on how that all went down. I think if anything, though, what it does is it reinforces, if you guys remember, Kobe Bryant basically at one point was like, if Shaq wasn't the laziest dude, he could have been like the all-time greatest ever. And I think you really see that, like the guy's talent. I mean, I would say he probably got maybe 70% of his actual talent. And if he had have really maxed out, we'd be talking about him as the all-time great.
Do you think Shaq agreed to that assessment? Did that come out of the documentary?
Oh yeah, I think he's admitted it. I think he's admitted to Kobe that he's like, yeah, I just didn't have the drive that you had. And because they had that, if you guys remember, there was this sit down between Kobe and Shaq before Kobe died, but like right at the end there, where they cleared out a lot of the air. And Shaq was very contrite and kind of saying like, yeah, I screwed this up. Like, you were the one that was right.
Hey, Jim, as I look at your team, Jed, I was telling Jimmy, right now, if he's in last place, if he wanted, he could get Wembanyama over all of us and still draft. And in some sense, I said, trade all your players. Go with younger players. I would keep Anthony Edwards. I keep Evan Mobley. But you still have Damian Lillard, Bradley Beal, Paul George sitting there. Trade all of them. Go for all younger players. And then from that point on, we're probably going to do 4 keepers. So suddenly you have Wembanyama, Evan Mobley, Anthony Edwards, and if you get one more stud young player, like the best young player right now out there is Ja Morant. Go for Ja Morant. Trade a bunch of players for Morant, and there you have it. You have a very good team.
Yeah, Tommy wrote me that. I was actually looking at that yesterday, trying to decide if that's a strategy I want to use. I mean, right now I'm still trying to think about how to. Yeah, I don't think there's any way I can win, but I'm considering that move.
Yeah. If
Seems
I
like
were
that's
you, right, I would go for Wembayama, or well, you can the second best player in the draft. You've used up all your and then from that point on, come back, work to rebuild, but go with young players. All right. Anything else?
Good luck, everyone. This is probably the last week of your regular season before heading into your playoffs. So good luck going into the playoffs. I've got in the 4 leagues, I'm in the playoffs in 2 and out in 2. So we'll see.
Yep. Well, we'll probably talk either on Monday night or Tuesday. So thank you very much, and we'll talk soon, everyone.